At the beginning of the drama, we meet the main male lead, Arthit, who is playing a football trial match with his close friend Thanon at college. Both perform brilliantly and qualify for the next round. We are also introduced to their friends Court and Ling. Naturally, everyone is thrilled by their success and celebrates together. On the other hand, we meet the female lead, Peng, a rich girl with a troublesome reputation. Despite having everything she could want, she constantly gets into fights. In fact, on her very first appearance, she is already arguing with other girls. While the fight is happening, Arthit notices the commotion and steps in. He tries to take Peng to the principal's office, but she has no intention of accepting punishment. She shoves him aside and runs away. Later, when Peng returns home, a maid notices the injuries on her face and realizes she has been fighting again. The maid advises her to stop making enemies and start making friends, but Peng dismisses the idea because she doesn't believe in friendship. A short while later, her father returns home. Knowing he'll notice her injuries, Peng hides under a blanket. However, when she finally peeks out, she finds him sitting beside her bed. As expected, he immediately notices the bruises and gently tells her that she's growing up and should focus on making friends instead of fighting. To lift her mood, he gives her a gift, and Peng happily promises to behave better. Meanwhile, Arthit spends time with his friends. During their gathering, both Arthit and Thanon buy drinks for Ling. Unsure which one to accept, Ling hesitates until Court jokingly tells her to simply choose. She takes Arthit's drink, leaving Thanon slightly disappointed. The reason is simple. Both Arthit and Thanon secretly have feelings for Ling. Elsewhere, Peng learns that her mother has gone to another party. Feeling ignored once again, she attends the same party and sends pictures to her mother, hoping for attention. When that doesn't work, she decides to take photos with a group of boys. Unfortunately, those boys secretly tamper with her drink. Coincidentally, Arthit is attending the same party. He notices what the boys are doing and rushes over just before Peng drinks it. A fight soon breaks out, and Arthit, along with his friends, teaches the troublemakers a lesson while protecting Peng. Afterward, everyone ends up at the police station, where Arthit explains the entire situation. The next morning, Peng's father personally invites Arthit to meet him and sincerely thanks him for saving his daughter. Sometime later, Arthit returns to his hometown to visit his parents. Since it has been a long time, the villagers are delighted to see him again. At the same time, Peng goes shopping alone before returning home. Deep down, she desperately wants to spend time with her parents, but they are always busy. When she arrives home to an empty house, she feels disappointed. Later, she learns that her mother is actually home and excitedly asks her father to come back as well. When he arrives, Peng surprises both of her parents by taking them to a resort where she has prepared a special family celebration. For the first time in a long while, they spend quality time together, making Peng genuinely happy. However, the next morning, Arthit receives a call from his mother, informing him that his father has been hospitalized. He immediately rushes to the hospital, where he learns that his father's business partner has betrayed him and is attempting to take over their farm. The stress has severely damaged his father's health. Meanwhile, Peng once again feels lonely because of her mother's absence. Wanting to cheer her up, her father plans a trip, and she happily agrees. Around the same time, Arthit returns to his village and discusses the farm's problems with his father. Soon after, Mr. Song, the man trying to acquire their land, arrives to finalize the deal. Arthit firmly refuses, declaring that they will never sell the farm. Meanwhile, Peng and her father visit Arthit's family. It turns out both families have been close for years. During the visit, Peng discovers that she and Arthit were childhood friends. Because of this, Arthit's father asks him to show her around the farm. Arthit takes Peng sightseeing through the countryside, and the two enjoy their time together. During their conversation, he asks if she has any close friends. Peng admits she never cared about friendship. Arthit explains how valuable friendship can be and offers to be her friend. Peng gladly accepts, making Arthit her very first true friend. After returning home, everyone gathers for lunch. Arthit's mother jokingly comments that Arthit has finally gained a little sister, though their future relationship may become something entirely different. Elsewhere, we meet Ishi, Thanon's younger sister, who has secretly liked Arthit for years. Later, when everyone hangs out together, she notices Arthit and Ling laughing together and immediately becomes jealous. Not long afterward, the group goes out together. While no one is looking, Ishi deliberately pushes Ling. Fortunately, Peng witnesses everything and exposes her in front of everyone. Later, Arthit offers to walk Peng home. During their conversation, she asks if Ling or Ishi is his girlfriend. Arthit casually explains that both are simply friends before Peng heads home. Back at her house, Pang becomes upset once again when her mother cancels a promised dinner because of work. Hurt and frustrated, she tells her parents that they care more about work than about her. Feeling heartbroken, Pang runs away. When she doesn't return home even after dark, her worried father contacts Arthit for help. Although Pang ignores everyone else's calls, she answers Arthit's. After getting her location, he rushes to find her. When he arrives, he only finds her bag on a rooftop, making him fear the worst. Moments later, Pang suddenly appears and casually explains that she had gone to buy food because she was hungry. After a long conversation, Arthit finally convinces her to return home. Once home, Pang apologizes to her mother, but her mother stops her and admits that she is the one who broke her promise. Later, Pang's father once again thanks Arthit for always taking care of his daughter. The following morning, Pang arrives at college determined to make friends. Unfortunately, her past behavior has earned her a bad reputation, and nobody wants to get close to her. Instead, she ends up in yet another fight. In the middle of the incident, her father arrives and takes her away. Surprisingly, he says he didn't come because of the fight. Instead, he wants her to stay away from home for a few days. Without explaining the reason, he takes Pang to Arthit's house and asks Arthit's family to look after her. Before leaving, he tells her to behave, avoid trouble, and get along with everyone. Meanwhile, the maids at Arthit's house are far from pleased about Pang's arrival. The next day, Pang calls her mother and realizes that she has no idea why Pang was sent away. Suspicious, she contacts one of her own maids and learns that her father has given the entire household staff a 2-week vacation. Immediately sensing that something is wrong, Pang secretly hides in a truck and returns home without telling anyone. At the same time, Arthit's father discovers her disappearance and goes searching for her. When Pang finally reaches her house, she is shocked to find it completely abandoned and in chaos. Then she suddenly hears a gunshot. Terrified, she rushes upstairs and discovers a horrifying sight. Her father is lying dead on the floor. At that exact moment, Arthit's father arrives and finds Pang covered in blood. Overwhelmed by shock and fear, she collapses unconscious. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the tragedy, Arthit is busy studying for his exams. Although his father calls several times, he deliberately hides the truth to avoid distracting him. The next morning, Pang regains consciousness. Still traumatized, she tells Arthit's father that she dreamed both of her parents had died. Heartbroken, he reveals that it wasn't a dream at all. It was reality. The truth completely shatters Pang. Meanwhile, Arthit's exams finally end and he celebrates with his friends. During their outing, both Arthit and Thanon continue stealing glances at Ling, unable to hide their feelings. Elsewhere, Pang struggles to cope with her loss. Arthit's mother brings her food, but she refuses to eat and throws it away. Later, she sits alone outside, lost in grief. Soon, the maids from Pang's house arrive to comfort her. Their presence helps ease her pain slightly, and they decide to cook for her. However, Arthit's household staff objects, leading to an argument between the two groups. The situation escalates until Arthit's father steps in and settles the matter by allowing Pang's maids to stay. At the same time, Arthit stands on a beach thinking about Ling. Unable to stop himself, he calls and asks if she would like to meet him. Just then, Thanon suddenly appears. Surprised, Arthit asks how he got there. Thanon simply replies that Ling invited him too. A few moments later, Ling arrives, and the three of them begin chatting together. During their conversation, Arthit asks Ling if she has ever thought about having a boyfriend. Ling simply replies that she has never really considered it. Then Arthit carefully asks Ling what she would think if one of her close friends became her boyfriend. Before Ling can answer, Thanon quickly says that it would be a terrible idea because it could destroy the friendship. Interestingly, Ling agrees with him, leaving Arthit disappointed. Soon after, everyone heads home. The following morning, the maids complain to Arthit's mother about Pang's behavior. While they're talking, Pang appears and speaks rudely, immediately angering Arthit's mother. Not long afterward, Arthit returns home and looks for Pang. The moment she hears his voice, she comes out of her room. Arthit tells her that he recently learned about her parents and apologizes for not coming sooner because of his exams. Without saying a word, Pang suddenly hugs him. Elsewhere, Thanon returns home and finds Ishi waiting for him. Excitedly, she asks whether Arthit has returned as well, but Thanon stops her from rushing off to see him. The next day, Arthit takes Pang to the farm to plant flowers and help lift her spirits. A worker named Sam offers to help, but Arthit insists on doing everything himself. Watching them together, Sam mistakenly assumes they're on a romantic date and quickly leaves in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Arthit's father watches them from afar and can't help smiling. While they work, a strong breeze messes up Pang's hair. Seeing this, Arthit gently fixes it for her. The simple gesture touches Pang deeply. Later, Sam excitedly spreads rumors that Arthit and Pang are dating. The moment Arthit appears, however, he immediately falls silent. That evening, Arthit and Pang go outside to watch a meteor shower. Sitting beneath the night sky, they share a peaceful conversation before making wishes upon the shooting stars. Arthit secretly wishes that Ling will someday return his feelings. Meanwhile, Pang wishes that she can stay by Arthit's side forever. The next morning, Pang is unusually cheerful. When a maid asks why, she shyly admits that she simply enjoyed spending time with Arthit. The maid smiles and says that the two of them look perfect together. Meanwhile, Sam continues spreading rumors, claiming that Arthit and Pang watched the meteor shower together and will probably get married someday. The gossip eventually reaches Arthit's mother. Shocked, she immediately dismisses the idea and firmly states that such a marriage could never happen. Unfortunately, Pang overhears everything. Hearing those words hurts her deeply. The next morning, Pang asks Arthit to accompany her to school and he agrees. However, Arthit's mother clearly dislikes how close they've become. Elsewhere, Ling is working at a restaurant when Thanon arrives and invites her to watch a movie. Unfortunately, she is too busy to go. Later, after returning from school, Pang takes Arthit to see the flowers they planted together. Seeing how beautifully they have grown, Arthit is genuinely impressed. Looking at her, he smiles and tells her that her smile is beautiful. The compliment makes Pang incredibly happy, and she immediately hugs him. By now, she has completely fallen in love with Arthit, though he remains unaware of her feelings. Meanwhile, Thanon waits outside Ling's workplace so he can accompany her home. While waiting, he discovers that the man talking to her is her father. Unfortunately, Ling's father is an alcoholic who only comes around to ask for money. The next day, Thanon secretly gives Ling's father money and asks him not to trouble her anymore. He tells him to come directly to him if he ever needs help because he doesn't want Ling to continue suffering. Meanwhile, after school, Pang waits for Arthit to return home. Instead, Arthit's mother calls her aside and warns her not to do anything that could damage the family's reputation. Finally losing patience, Pang openly admits that she likes Arthit and asks what is wrong with loving him. Arthit's mother is completely shocked. When Arthit's father hears about the situation, he calmly asks why liking Arthit should be considered a problem. Elsewhere, Arthit returns home exhausted and falls asleep. While he is sleeping, Pang quietly sits beside him, smiling as she watches him. When Arthit wakes up and notices her there, he is startled. Later at school, Ishi once again provokes Pang. At first, Pang ignores her, but everything changes when Ishi cruelly calls her an orphan and warns her to stay away from Arthit. Unable to control herself, Pang grabs Ishi's hair and a huge fight breaks out. As a result, both girls are called into the school office. When Arthit's mother arrives, Pang tries to explain what happened, but Ishi twists the story and blames everything on her. In the end, everyone believes Ishi. Back home, Arthit's mother repeats the accusations. Furious at being blamed unfairly, Pang refuses to apologize. When Arthit insists that she should, the argument escalates. During the struggle, Arthit's mother accidentally falls after being hit by Pang's leg. At that exact moment, Arthit's father arrives. Terrified by what happened, Pang immediately runs away. Later, Arthit's mother declares that she can no longer live with Pang. However, Arthit's father firmly insists that Pang will continue staying there. That night, Pang breaks down and tells Arthit that nobody likes her. According to her, his mother Ishi and even the maids all hate her. Arthit tries to comfort her, explaining that things might improve if she apologizes and changes her attitude. Then a shocking truth is revealed. Arthit's father reveals that before his death, Pang's father discussed arranging a marriage between Pang and Arthit. He had personally promised to make it happen. Outside the room, both Arthit and Pang overhear everything. Pang is instantly overjoyed, but Arthit has the exact opposite reaction. He storms inside and firmly declares that he can never marry Pang. Without hesitation, Pang hugs him and confesses her love. However, Arthit pushes her away and leaves. Later, Arthit's father reminds him of his promise, but Arthit argues that it is his life and he should be allowed to make his own decisions. Soon afterward, Arthit speaks privately with Pang. Once again, she tells him that she loves him. Arthit gently explains that he has always seen her as a younger sister and can never view her romantically. His words completely shatter her. Unable to accept the rejection, Pang suddenly kisses him. Startled, Arthit tries to leave, but Pang desperately grabs his leg and begs him to stay. Nothing changes his mind. Soon afterward, Arthit tells Thanon everything and moves to Bangkok so he no longer has to face Pang every day. Meanwhile, Pang locks herself in her room and cries endlessly. Seeing her condition, Arthit's father comforts her and asks her to give Arthit time. On the other hand, Arthit spends the night drinking with his friends. Ling notices something is wrong and asks what is bothering him. Instead of answering, Arthit suddenly hugs her. Unfortunately, Thanon arrives at that exact moment and witnesses everything. Arthit finally reveals the truth. The girl he loves has never been Pang. It has always been Ling. Because of that, he can never accept the marriage proposal. However, Ling doesn't share his feelings and gently rejects him. To his credit, Arthit accepts her decision maturely and says that feelings can never be forced. Meanwhile, chaos erupts once again among the maids at the farm, and Pang gets involved as usual. When Arthit's mother tries to stop the argument, Pang refuses to listen. Still emotional, she argues that her father helped save the farm financially, meaning she has every right to be there. Naturally, Arthit's mother is furious. Later, she tells Arthit everything that happened. Although he admits that Pang is immature and often speaks without thinking, he also reminds everyone that her father once helped their family tremendously. Meanwhile, Pang sits alone writing in her diary when Arthit's father visits her with food. Knowing she hasn't been eating properly, he patiently feeds her himself. The gesture is incredibly touching. The next morning, Pang gathers her courage and apologizes to Arthit's mother. Unfortunately, she refuses to forgive her and warns her to stay away from Arthit. Heartbroken, Pang begins sending messages to Arthit, but he ignores every single one. The following day at school, Ishi tries another prank by secretly pouring paint onto Pang's chair. Expecting humiliation, she waits eagerly for Pang's reaction. Instead, Pang casually removes the stained skirt and walks away without embarrassment, completely ruining Ishi's plan. Furious, Ishi later refuses to apologize when confronted by Pang. As punishment, Pang grabs a pair of scissors and cuts off part of her hair. Naturally, another disciplinary meeting follows. This time, Arthit's mother apologizes on Pang's behalf. After returning home, she demands to know why Pang fought again. Pang confidently replies that Ishi started it and simply got what she deserved. When ordered to apologize, Pang refuses once again. This finally pushes Arthit's mother beyond her limit. In anger, she throws all of Pang's clothes outside. Unfortunately, Pang responds by throwing their clothes outside too. Soon, complete chaos erupts. Sam tries to stop her, but Pang bites him and runs away. Arthit's mother even chases her with a stick. Eventually, Pang hides behind Arthit's father for protection. After everything settles down, she innocently explains that she only threw their clothes out because hers were thrown out first. Meanwhile, Arthit is studying with his friends when Pang calls him. As usual, he ignores it. Seeing this, Court convinces him to answer just once. The moment the call connects, Pang immediately asks when he is coming home. Arthit explains that he has an important football match and won't be returning anytime soon. Pang says she wants to come watch him play, but Arthit quickly refuses. Later, she pretends to be sick in hopes of making him come back. However, Arthit bluntly replies that if she's sick, she should see a doctor. At this point, he becomes annoyed because his friends convinced him to answer the call in the first place. Then Court comes up with an idea. He secretly takes a photo of Arthit and Ling together and sends it to Pang, claiming that Ling is Arthit's girlfriend. Everyone else thinks it's a terrible plan. Unfortunately, they're right. The moment Pang sees the picture, she becomes absolutely furious. The very next day, Pang travels all the way to see Arthit while he is busy playing a football match. She watches from the stands as his team secures a victory. After the game, Arthit notices her repeated calls but ignores them. A few minutes later, Pang somehow finds the changing room. Seeing her there, Arthit immediately takes her outside and scolds her, telling her to stop causing trouble and go home. But Pang refuses. He boldly declares that no matter what happens, he is going to marry her someday. Rather than arguing, Arthit simply walks away. However, Pang isn't finished. Moments later, a voice suddenly echoes through the college loudspeakers. To everyone's shock, Pang has taken over the announcement system. She publicly declares her love for Arthit, announces that they will get married, and warns every girl to stay away from him. Hearing this, Arthit rushes over and stops the announcement. Furious, he tells her that she has completely crossed the line, but Pang still refuses to listen. Instead, she charges toward Ling because she believes Ling is Arthit's girlfriend. Before another fight breaks out, Arthit stops her. Eventually, exhausted by the situation, Arthit agrees to return to the village with her. Even after returning home, however, he remains extremely angry. The next morning, Thanon visits the farm. During their conversation, he asks why Arthit keeps rejecting Paeng and wonders what would be so terrible about marrying her. Arthit immediately dismisses the idea. In fact, he says that from now on, he plans to treat Paeng even more harshly so she will finally give up on him. Meanwhile, Ishi arrives with food for everyone. After tasting it, Paeng openly criticizes it and asks whether it is even edible. Naturally, Ishi is offended. When Arthit tells Paeng to apologize, she refuses as usual. A little later, Arthit finally decides to be completely honest. He clearly tells Paeng that he does not love her and never sees a future where they could be together. He advises her to forget him and move on. For the first time, Paeng has nothing to say. Tears fill her eyes as she quietly walks away. Meanwhile, the maids secretly discuss ways to drive Paeng out of the house. Unfortunately for them, Paeng overhears everything. Later, during lunch, all the workers suddenly suffer severe stomach pain after eating. A doctor is called and reveals that everyone is suffering from food poisoning. As people search for answers, Paeng blames the maids for preparing the food improperly. Arthit's mother immediately tells her to stop interfering. Meanwhile, Paeng's maids are confused because they know they prepared everything correctly. As the investigation continues, Paeng quietly slips away. The truth is that she secretly mixed medicine into the food herself. Soon afterward, Sam discovers the medicine bottle. The moment Arthit's mother sees it, she immediately suspects Paeng. At that time, Paeng is wandering around the farm when Arthit's mother confronts her. Pretending to be innocent, Paeng denies everything. Then Sam reveals that he saw her entering the kitchen earlier. When Arthit's father asks why she was there if she did nothing wrong, Paeng has no answer and simply walks away. That evening, heavy rain begins falling. When Paeng still hasn't returned home, Arthit's father starts worrying. Fortunately, Sam later informs him that she has returned safely. The next morning, Paeng develops a high fever. Although her maids try to care for her, she stubbornly refuses help. When Arthit's father learns how sick she is, he immediately checks on her. Coincidentally, Arthit also returns home that day. His mother is surprised, but Arthit explains that his father called because Paeng is seriously ill. Later, Arthit's father insists that Paeng go to the hospital with Arthit. Ishi joins them as well. Once there, Paeng wants to leave almost immediately, but Arthit refuses and orders her to stay until she recovers. Paeng asks him to remain with her. Unfortunately, Arthit chooses to leave with Ishi instead. Before leaving, Ishi smugly tells Paeng that Arthit belongs to her now. That same night, Arthit goes drinking at a restaurant. Despite Thanon's efforts to stop him, he continues drinking heavily. Meanwhile, Arthit's father discovers that Paeng has disappeared from the hospital, forcing everyone to search for her. Eventually, Thanon brings the drunk Arthit home. Arthit heads straight to his room and collapses onto his bed. To his surprise, Paeng is already there waiting for him. The moment he sees her, he tells her to leave, but Paeng refuses. At the same time, the rest of the family returns home after failing to find her. Inside the room, Arthit continues trying to force her out. Finally, losing his patience, he bluntly says that even if she were the last woman on Earth, he would never marry her. Those words make Paeng furious. Another struggle breaks out between them. Just then, Arthit's parents walk into the room. The scene they witness immediately shocks them. Taking advantage of the situation, Paeng acts as though she needs help while Arthit desperately tries to explain that nothing happened. His mother notices that he has been drinking and questions him. Although Arthit admits it, he insists he knows exactly what is happening and repeatedly says that Paeng is trying to frame him. However, no one seems willing to listen. His father becomes furious and refuses to believe any explanation. Instead, he trusts what he saw with his own eyes. No matter how much Arthit defends himself, it changes nothing. Finally, his father makes a shocking announcement. Arthit and Paeng will be married the following month. Hearing this, Arthit completely loses his temper. He firmly declares that he will never marry Paeng and storms out of the house. Determined to escape everything, he heads toward Thanon's place. Unfortunately, before he arrives, he is involved in a serious accident. As soon as the family learns what happened, everyone rushes to the hospital. Arthit's injuries are severe, and doctors are forced to perform surgery. The next morning, when Paeng learns that his condition remains critical, she breaks down in tears. Overwhelmed with guilt, she finally admits that Arthit did nothing wrong that night and blames herself for everything. Desperate to see him, she asks for permission to visit. However, Arthit's father gently refuses. Later, he suggests that Paeng continue her studies in Bangkok for a while. The real reason is to create some distance until things settle down. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Court visits Arthit and tells him that Thanon has been chosen as the best football player at college. While talking, Arthit notices a photo of Ling and Thanon together. The sight immediately irritates him and he throws his phone away. That night, Arthit struggles with the painful thought that he may never be able to play football again. At the same time, Ling decides to leave for England and live with her mother, because she is tired of dealing with her father's problems. The following day, she says goodbye to everyone and leaves the country. Elsewhere, Pang gradually adjusts to life in Bangkok. She makes friends, focuses on her studies, and eventually graduates. Sometime later, Arthit's father visits her and asks what she plans to do next. To his surprise, Pang says she wants to work in flower farming. Hearing this makes him happy, and he fully supports her decision. The very next day, Pang begins learning everything she can about farming. However, pursuing that dream means returning to the village. At first, she hesitates because of everything that happened there. But after Arthit's father reassures her that things will be different, she finally agrees. Soon afterward, Pang returns to the farm. Unfortunately, her arrival is far from welcoming. Arthit's mother refuses to let her stay in the main house and forces her to live in a dirty worker's room instead. While cleaning the room, Pang suddenly comes face to face with Arthit. The moment she sees him sitting in a wheelchair, she freezes. She never realized his injuries were still this serious. For Arthit, however, seeing Pang only reopens old wounds. He blames her entirely for his condition. Even though she repeatedly apologizes, Arthit coldly replies that perhaps he should break her legs as well and apologize afterward. Pang accepts all of his anger and says she is willing to do anything to make things right. Unfortunately, Arthit's resentment only grows stronger. He begins assigning her the worst jobs on the farm, from cleaning animal waste to handling exhausting labor. At the same time, he repeatedly gives her chances to leave, but no matter how difficult things become, Pang refuses to run away. Frustrated, Arthit gathers all the workers and announces a new rule. Anyone who helps Pang will immediately lose their job. Meanwhile, Pang travels into town. When Sam sees her leave, he assumes she has finally given up and run away. Excited, he tells Arthit's mother, and both are pleased by the news. Their happiness doesn't last long. A little later, several delivery packages arrive. Everyone quickly realizes that Pang wasn't running away at all. She simply went shopping. When she starts moving her belongings into her room, Arthit's mother and the maids try to stop her. A heated argument follows until Arthit arrives. Pang explains that she only bought basic necessities because she cannot live comfortably without them. After hearing her out, Arthit surprisingly allows her to keep everything. Feeling emotional, Pang asks why he continues treating her so badly. Without hesitation, Arthit gives an honest answer. He says he treats her that way because he hates her. Even after hearing those painful words, Pang refuses to give up. She tells him that one day everything will be all right again. Later, Pang is assigned to feed the animals. While working, she is told that Arthit has given her another task, cleaning a storage room. Without complaining, she goes there. However, the moment she enters, someone locks the door behind her. Realizing she has been trapped, Pang desperately searches for a way out. Elsewhere, Arthit enjoys the prank and expects her to remain stuck for hours. But Pang refuses to surrender. After searching the room carefully, she discovers another exit and escapes on her own. Immediately afterward, she confronts Arthit. The moment he sees her, he is stunned. Pang angrily tells him to stop acting like a child, but Arthit doesn't back down. He bluntly says that the games will continue until she leaves the farm. Pang warns that she will tell his father everything. Hearing that only makes him angrier. Arthit finally explodes and tells her that because of her, he lost valuable time, spent months unable to walk properly, and was forced to give up the sport he loved. Simply seeing her is enough to make him furious. Even then, he offers her one last chance to leave. At that exact moment, Arthit's father arrives and asks what is happening. After a moment of silence, Pang tells him the truth. She reveals that Arthit has been forcing her to do difficult work and constantly trying to drive her away. To her surprise, Arthit openly admits everything. He clearly says that he doesn't want Pang living there, and that making her life miserable was completely intentional. Hurt by his words, Pang asks if she can simply return to Bangkok. However, Arthit's father refuses. That answer makes Arthit furious. He immediately declares that if Pang stays, then he will be the one leaving. His father tries to calm him and asks him to give Pang one final chance. But Arthit reminds him that the last time Pang entered his life, he nearly lost everything. And despite his father's efforts, he still refuses to let go of the past. Later, Arthit's father tells Pang to move back into her old room inside the house. Surprisingly, Pang isn't happy about it. She admits that living under the same roof as Arthit again might not be a good idea. The following morning, Arthit's father takes her to a piece of land and shows her where she can build her flower garden. He promises to support the project personally, giving Pang new motivation. From that day on, she throws herself into her work. Sam even gathers workers to help her get started. Watching all of this from afar, Arthit becomes increasingly irritated. After working all day, Pang falls asleep from exhaustion. Later, she wakes up starving and sneaks into the house to steal food. Unfortunately, Arthit happens to be taking a shower. Just as she's about to leave, a spoon falls onto the floor, creating a loud noise. Moments later, Arthit appears and asks what she's doing there. Pang is ready to argue, but seeing him standing there shirtless suddenly changes her mind. Instead of fighting, she quietly grabs the food and retreats. The next morning, Arthit's father invites Pang to breakfast. At first, she refuses, joking that Arthit will probably eat her alive if she sits at the same table. However, she eventually gives in. During breakfast, Arthit's father announces that Pang will be eating meals with the family from now on. The moment Arthit hears this, he gets up and leaves. Later, Arthit argues with his father, insisting that Pang isn't capable of managing such a large farming project and that investing money in her dream is a waste. His father completely disagrees. Meanwhile, Ling finally returns from England. Back at the farm, Pang asks workers to help with her garden. Unfortunately, everyone refuses because Arthit has forbidden them from helping her. Furious, Pang decides to confront him. On the way, she unexpectedly meets Court, who introduces her to Ling. Feeling guilty about the past, Pang apologizes to Ling. Fortunately, Ling accepts, and the two quickly become friends. During their conversation, Pang asks if Arthit is still treating her badly. Court laughs and says he's become even worse. When Pang says she was actually looking for Arthit, Court points her toward a small cottage behind the farm where Arthit spends most of his time. As soon as Arthit sees her approaching, he sarcastically tells Sam to bring that dog over here. Confused, Pang looks around, only for Arthit to reveal that he was talking about her. Naturally, she gets angry. Arthit then sarcastically asks whether she's trying to seduce him again. To his surprise, Pang calmly replies that she has absolutely no interest in marrying him anymore. Hearing that, Arthit smirks and says it's the smartest thing she's ever said. Ignoring the insult, Pang asks why he's preventing workers from helping her. Arthit's answer is simple. He doesn't like her. And according to him, letting her stay on the farm is already a huge favor. Realizing the conversation is pointless, Pang leaves. Later, Arthit meets Ling. Ling tells him that he's gone too far with Pang and reminds him that she's apologized many times already. Before he can respond, Thanon arrives. The moment he does, Ling suddenly acts unusually close to Arthit, making Thanon visibly uncomfortable. Afterward, Thanon runs into Pang and takes a look at her garden plans. Unlike everyone else, he genuinely wants to help and even suggests several improvements. However, Arthit suddenly arrives. The moment he sees Thanon helping Pang, he calls him over and asks whether he's his friend or hers. Before Thanon can answer, Arthit warns him that if he starts dating Pang, their friendship is over. Thanon finds the accusation ridiculous. He immediately fires back, reminding Arthit that nobody ever stopped him from spending time with Ling. With that, he walks away. Later, Pang tells Arthit to stop bothering Thanon and focus on his own life, but Arthit refuses to listen. He jokes that she might try to seduce Thanon the same way she supposedly seduced him. Pang immediately shuts down the accusation. Right then, Thanon returns, and the two continue discussing the project. Arthit refuses to leave until Thanon finally asks if he has anything better to do. Arthit casually replies that he's only there because he doesn't trust Pang. Then he finally walks away. Meanwhile, Arthit's father learns that Arthit has forbidden workers from helping Pang. Unhappy with this, he gathers everyone and officially gives them permission to assist her project. A little later, salary day arrives. Arthit pays every worker except those helping Pang. When she asks why, Arthit says only people working for him deserve payment. Not wanting anyone to suffer because of her, Pang personally pays the workers herself. In fact, she gives them even more money than Arthit would have. The workers are thrilled. That night, they celebrate together. Watching from afar, many of the other workers regret not joining Pang's team. The very next morning, almost everyone wants to work with her instead. At that point, Arthit's father steps in and reminds everyone that Pang's garden is part of the farm's future, so cooperation is necessary. He also warns Arthit not to create more problems. Although Arthit reluctantly agrees, he requests that Pang work directly under his supervision. To his surprise, his father approves. The next day happens to be the death anniversary of Pang's parents. Since Arthit's father is busy, he asks Arthit to accompany her to the temple. Meanwhile, Thanon discovers a doll inside Ling's bag. The doll immediately catches his attention because he gave it to her years ago. Realizing she still kept it, Thanon begins to hope that Ling might have feelings for him. Without wasting time, he rushes to Arthit and asks whether he and Ling were ever actually dating. Arthit quickly denies it. He explains that they were never together and that Ling only pretended whenever Thanon was around. The revelation leaves Thanon even more confused. Back at the farm, the workers decide to organize a group outing and invite Pang. Naturally, she agrees. To her surprise, Arthit joins the trip as well. During the outing, Arthit drinks far too much. At one point, he even tells Sam to keep an eye on Pang because she might try something suspicious. Hearing that, Pang rolls her eyes and says she wouldn't take him even if he were free. After the party, Arthit is so drunk that he can barely walk. Since nobody else is available, Pang helps him home. Along the way, she tries to sit him down so he can rest. However, Arthit is completely intoxicated. Mistaking Pang for a pillow, he suddenly pulls her closer. Before she can react, Arthit unexpectedly kisses her. At that exact moment, Arthit's mother arrives and witnesses everything. Shocked, she freezes. Meanwhile, Pang panics and quickly runs away. The next morning, Arthit wakes up to find his mother waiting for him. Immediately, he senses trouble. His mother asks why he was with Pang the previous night. Arthit casually says they were with the others. Then she drops a bombshell. She tells him that he kissed Pang. As the memory slowly returns, Arthit becomes completely embarrassed. At the same time, Pang is equally mortified and doesn't even want to face him. Unfortunately, fate has other plans. Soon, they accidentally run into each other. Instead of feeling embarrassed, Arthit immediately accuses her of planning the whole thing. Pang is stunned. She reminds him that he was the one who kissed her. Elsewhere, Arthit's mother visits Ishi. She openly tells her that she wants her to marry Arthit. Naturally, Ishi agrees immediately. However, Arthit's mother says there's one obstacle standing in their way: Pang. Together, they decide to get rid of her. That very night, Ishi disguises herself as a ghost and scares Pang. While Pang is distracted, Ishi sneaks into her room and destroys her belongings. The next day, Arthit's father invites Thanon and Pang to dinner. When everyone sits down, Thanon deliberately asks Pang to sit beside him and spends the entire meal taking care of her. Watching this makes Arthit increasingly uncomfortable. After dinner, he finally asks Thanon why he's always spending time with Pang when he supposedly likes Ling. Thanon calmly replies that Pang is like a sister to him, and that Arthit can think whatever he wants. Even then, Arthit warns him to stay away from her. Later, Arthit pulls Pang aside and asks what exactly is going on between her and Thanon. Pang immediately teases him and asks whether he simply can't stand seeing her happy. Ignoring the joke, Arthit insists that Thanon doesn't actually like her. Pang shrugs and says she doesn't care, but if Thanon ever needed help, she would gladly support him. For some reason, that answer bothers Arthit more than it should. He reminds her that she once used to be obsessed with him. Pang simply smiles and replies that she was young and immature back then. The following day, Arthit and Ling go out together. Not long afterward, Thanon arrives with Pang, and the four of them end up spending the day together. The moment Arthit sees Pang there, he becomes annoyed again. Later, while eating lunch, Thanon continues treating Pang with obvious care. Eventually, both Arthit and Ling become suspicious and ask what is really going on. Without warning, Thanon grabs Pang's hand and announces that they're dating. The statement completely catches Arthit off guard. Already irritated, he gets up and leaves. However, after calming down, Arthit begins thinking logically. If Thanon truly liked Pang, then why was he constantly chasing after Ling? Wanting answers, he later speaks with Thanon privately. That's when Thanon reveals the truth. He explains that he and Pang are only pretending to date in order to make Ling jealous, because Ling refuses to admit her feelings. Elsewhere, Pang is eating noodles when a man named Mark approaches and starts chatting with her. Coincidentally, Arthit notices them together. Although he doesn't know Mark, he finds himself paying close attention. The next day, Thanon finally confesses his feelings to Ling. He admits that the relationship with Pang was fake, and that she was only helping him. Then he asks Ling to take her time before giving him an answer. That evening, everyone gathers at a restaurant. During dinner, Pang drinks far too much and ends up completely drunk. Thanon tries to take care of her, but Arthit suddenly steps in and says he'll handle it. Meanwhile, Ling is also feeling dizzy, so Thanon stays with her instead. Arthit tells Pang to return to her room. Unfortunately, she's so drunk that she can barely stand. Having no other choice, Arthit carries her upstairs. However, when they finally reach the room, Arthit suddenly realizes something is wrong. This isn't Pang's room at all. By then, Pang is already half asleep and refuses to wake up. Since moving her again would be difficult, Arthit ends up staying in the room for the night. Early the next morning, he quietly leaves before anyone notices. Outside, he runs into Thanon, who jokingly asks whether anything happened between him and Pang. Arthit immediately denies it and insists that absolutely nothing happened. Meanwhile, Pang wakes up and realizes she isn't in her own room. Confused, she spends several minutes trying to figure out what happened. Later, everyone gathers for breakfast. Afterward, Thanon approaches Ling once again and asks for her answer. This time, Ling finally says yes. After all the misunderstandings, the two officially become a couple. Watching them from a distance, Pang feels genuinely happy for them. Soon after, she runs into Arthit. Still embarrassed about the previous night, Arthit accuses her of causing trouble again. Pang denies it, but when Arthit reminds her how drunk she was, the memories slowly return. Embarrassed, she quickly apologizes. Arthit warns her to be more careful in the future. Meanwhile, Pang practically swears she'll never touch alcohol again. That night, several workers gather in the kitchen and begin playing a spirit game that supposedly reveals hidden secrets. When Pang hears about it, she immediately becomes interested because she desperately wants to know who murdered her parents. Just as the game begins, Arthit walks in and shuts everything down, ordering everyone to go to bed. Pang becomes upset again because it feels like Arthit always ruins everything she tries to do. Later, Arthit learns the real reason she wanted to play. The next morning, something unexpected happens. Arthit suddenly walks into Pang's room. Completely shocked, she asks why he's there. Arthit casually replies that she's his employee, so he can visit whenever he wants. Pang tells him to leave, but instead he lies down on her bed and makes himself comfortable. Watching this strange behavior, Pang becomes extremely confused. For the first time, she starts wondering why Arthit is acting differently around her. Later, while Pang is washing clothes, Arthit checks the flower samples she prepared and is surprised by how good they are. When Pang returns, she finds him asleep. Thinking he's pretending, she moves closer. At that exact moment, Arthit suddenly wakes up and grabs her hand. As the two struggle awkwardly, they accidentally kiss. The unexpected kiss leaves Arthit completely flustered, and he immediately walks away. Meanwhile, one of the maids tells Arthit's mother that Arthit may have fallen in love with Pang because they're always together. Hearing this, Arthit's mother becomes extremely worried and storms over to confront Pang. She accuses her of using tricks to get close to Arthit. Fortunately, Arthit's father quickly explains that he was the one who asked Arthit to help Pang with her work. Even so, Arthit's mother insists that she doesn't want them spending time together anymore. Feeling guilty, Pang apologizes and promises to keep her distance from Arthit. The next day, Mark visits Pang. She shows him around her flower garden and Mark repeatedly praises her work. The compliments make Pang happy. However, when Arthit sees them together, he immediately becomes jealous. Pang explains that Mark is simply a customer, but Arthit refuses to believe her. Later, Thanon invites everyone to Ling's house. Around the same time, Mark calls Pang. Before she can answer, Arthit snatches the phone away and demands to know why Mark keeps calling. When Mark says he has personal matters to discuss with Pang, Arthit bluntly tells him never to call again. Furious, Pang walks away. The following day, Pang and Mark go shopping together. Coincidentally, Arthit is there with Ishi. The moment he notices Pang, he sends Ishi home and goes to sit near her. After introducing himself to Mark, Arthit deliberately tells Pang, "Dear, come home quickly." The comment completely shocks Mark. When he asks whether Arthit is her boyfriend, Pang quickly denies it and says Arthit simply enjoys annoying her. Meanwhile, a major explosion occurs at a nearby factory, releasing pollution that damages the farm's crops. Arthit and Thanon visit the factory owner, Mr. Lee, to discuss the matter. Although Lee promises the problem won't happen again, neither of them trusts him. During the meeting, they discover that Mark is actually one of Lee's friends, making them even more suspicious. Soon afterward, Arthit asks Pang for Mark's phone number. When she refuses, he secretly obtains it through one of the workers. At the same time, Pang presents her flower products to potential buyers. Everything seems to be going perfectly until a man suddenly arrives and takes her away. From a distance, Arthit notices and starts following them. Unfortunately, he eventually loses track. Soon afterward, someone sends a photo of an unconscious Pang to Mark. That's when the truth is revealed. The kidnapping was planned by Mark himself. Meanwhile, Pang regains consciousness and tries to escape, but the thugs catch her again. Just when things seem hopeless, Arthit arrives and rescues her. However, during the fight, one of the criminals hits Arthit on the head, knocking him unconscious. The next moment, both Arthit and Pang end up captured. Pang becomes extremely worried and keeps crying because of Arthit's condition. Even so, Arthit stays calm and eventually discovers a possible escape route. Back at the farm, Arthit's father realizes they're missing and immediately contacts the police. As Arthit and Pang attempt to escape, the kidnappers notice them. Realizing they're being chased, Arthit tells Pang to run toward the main road. Pang refuses because she doesn't want to leave him behind. However, Arthit insists and deliberately leads the thugs away from her. While doing so, one of the criminals fires a gun. Hearing the shot, Pang desperately tries to return. On the way back, she unexpectedly runs into Mark. Shocked, she asks what he's doing there. Mark tells her he'll explain later and urges her to leave while he finds Arthit. Meanwhile, Arthit is fighting one of the thugs when Mark suddenly appears and shoots the criminal in the shoulder. Not long afterward, Pang reaches Arthit, and moments later the police arrive and take control of the situation. In the next scene, everyone is recovering safely at the hospital. After nearly losing him, Pang feels relieved to see Arthit alive. From that point onward, Arthit's behavior changes completely. For the first time, he begins treating Pang with genuine care and kindness. One night, Arthit takes her to a beautiful house and personally prepares dinner for her. Looking at the table full of food, Pang smiles and says she never imagined he'd treat her this well. Arthit simply smiles back. Later that night, Thanon calls with important news. He reveals that Mr. Lee was involved in everything. Arthit replies that Lee isn't working alone because Mark is involved too, which is why he brought Pang somewhere safe. The next day, Arthit surprises her again by preparing lunch. During the meal, he tells her that he wants to forget the past and start over. Confused, Pang asks what he means. Taking a deep breath, Arthit finally confesses. He admits that he's fallen in love with her and wants her to love him the way she once loved him. Pang is completely stunned by the confession. Later, Pang tells Arthit's father that she's made an important decision. She wants to uncover the truth about her parents' deaths. Hearing this, he becomes worried. While discussing the matter with Arthit, he reveals a shocking secret. According to the original investigation, the evidence suggested that Pang's father killed her mother before taking his own life. They never told Pang because they didn't want to destroy her image of her father. Arthit asks why they don't simply help her discover the truth, but his father fears the truth might only hurt her more. Meanwhile, on a happier note, Thanon finally proposes to Ling. Ling happily accepts and everyone celebrates. Soon afterward, Pang travels to Bangkok to continue investigating the case. There, she shows Mark an old diary containing a drawing of a unique tattoo. When Mark sees it, he immediately says it looks familiar. Hearing that, Pang asks him to help remember where he's seen it before. Later, she visits the police station and reviews the old case files. To her shock, the report repeats the same conclusion. Her father allegedly killed her mother before taking his own life. Pang refuses to believe it. Heartbroken, she asks Arthit whether he believes the report. Arthit gently replies that the evidence points in that direction. Unable to accept it, Pang leaves in tears. As time passes, she becomes increasingly suspicious of Mark. Wanting answers, she arranges to visit his house. However, she secretly installs a hidden camera and begins searching for evidence. While looking around, she discovers a photo of Mark showing the exact same tattoo from the diary. Moments later, she also finds a picture of her mother. Before she can investigate further, Mark suddenly returns. Pang quickly hides and secretly sends her location to Arthit. Unfortunately, Mark eventually finds her. When Pang questions him about the tattoo, Mark finally confesses everything. He admits that he murdered her mother. According to him, Pang's mother wanted to leave him, but he couldn't accept being abandoned. He then shockingly reveals that he feels the same obsession toward Pang. Terrified, Pang grabs a knife and tries to escape. However, Mark quickly overpowers her. At the same time, Arthit receives her location and rushes to the hotel. After finding the correct room, he confronts Mark. As soon as he enters, Mark points a gun at him. Fortunately, Arthit manages to knock the weapon away. Moments later, the police arrive and arrest Mark. Later, Pang appears in court with Arthit and all her friends supporting her. During the trial, she reveals a shocking truth. Mark was actually her mother's secret lover. The courtroom is stunned. Pang then presents the recording she secretly captured, clearly proving Mark confessed to the murder. Desperate to save himself, Mark claims Pang fabricated everything. However, the police already possess overwhelming evidence, including DNA records, tattoo evidence, and multiple supporting proofs. As a result, Mark is found guilty and taken away. After the trial, everyone returns home. Eventually, Pang decides to leave for Bangkok. One of the biggest reasons is that Arthit's mother still hasn't fully accepted her. After she leaves, Arthit becomes unusually quiet and withdrawn. A few days later, Arthit's mother finally meets Pang. She tells her that Arthit hasn't been the same since she left. Hearing this, Pang immediately understands what she means. In the final part of the drama, Pang returns to the village and stands before Arthit once again. Although he's still hurt by her decision to leave, Pang refuses to give up. After trying her best to win back his trust, she finally succeeds. Then, with all her feelings laid bare, Pang confesses that she has loved him ever since childhood. She admits that all the crazy things she did were simply because she wanted to win his heart. Looking into his eyes, she tells him that he is her forever sunshine. Everyone watching becomes emotional and happy for the couple. In the end, Arthit and Pang finally get married, giving the story a beautiful and satisfying ending. And with the wedding of our beloved couple, this drama comes to an end.